And welcome back. This is your man Warrior. This is another patron roster review, and this is Smottern of Seekers of Jedi. And he's a Dolphin, been playing for about 2.5 years, and he has got one of the most focused rosters I have ever seen. Really great to see. I went through his entire roster and I was blown away that really, I mean, he had his favorites sent to me and I was looking at his favorites and I was like, oh, those are great. And then by the time I looked at his roster to finish out his review, most of those that he was working on were already done or close to completion. But there was only a couple characters I saw that I was like, these aren't even on his radar. So I definitely want to put these characters onto his radar for him. And really what he wanted was teams, 5 versus 5 or 3 versus 3 for like Territory Wars Grand Arena for ideas. Now, any 5 versus 5 team I give you, you can kind of break it down into a 3 versus 3 team. Pretty simple. You use a leader with a tank and an attacker, that kind of thing. You really always want that leader, a tank, and an attacker. Sometimes you can go leader, attacker if you're doing offense, but for the most part, you'll break it down like that. It's pretty simple. Once you see the teams, you'll know 5 versus 5, 3 versus 3. You can do either, but we're going to go through kind of some of the offensive teams, some of the defensive teams that you can go through. So we're going to go ahead and go into his inventory. Now, the first thing a lot of people like to look at is just a basic roster, see kind of where he's developed. And boy, he's got all of the goodies. Everybody that you really want to focus on is really focused in pretty good, actually. So you can even see some of the like Ewoks and whatnot are pretty good. So that's awesome. We're just going to show you the rest of his roster. Now, there's a couple on the bottom that would be fun to develop, such as Jango Fett or Visa Smar. There's a few down here, but all in all, the ones that are most important are developed. Now, let's go ahead and go through some of those like defensive teams that you're going to probably want to set on Territory Wars or Grand Arena. Now, no surprise, a lot of people set Sith Empire on defense. It really takes you to the next level, and your top 5 are the team that you use in Arena you would be using in Territory Wars or Grand Arena. Really great team. Now, if you find that your opponent does not have a Darth Malak, then you could actually put like Sith Marauder in this team and pull Darth Malak out to work with another Sith team. Darth Malak underneath like the Triumvirate is just sick. It's terrifying and really pretty much guarantees. The other thing you could do is if somebody is constantly one-shotting your Darth Revan, whoever you're fighting is just one-shotting this team, and I don't see that. You're not even at 4 million GP yet, so I don't see this as a problem. But if you were getting people that are just one-shotting this team, you could pull Darth Malak out for that purpose as well. But if you see they don't have a Darth Malak, or they're people aren't able to one-shot this team, then I would leave it intact exactly as it is, as kind of a roadblock, something that they basically get stuck on. Put it in the front, so that way if they can't beat it, they just can't clear any of the board. Don't hide it in the back or anything silly like that. Like right up front, make it a challenge. This is what you have to accomplish or not. Otherwise, your Sith Empire looks really good. The only character in this, and I know you're a Dolphin, so you're not going to want to focus on too much, but the only character in here you may want to take a look at is the Sith Marauder and or the Sith Assassin. Both of them potentially, both have ships, and there's possibly the ships are going to be needed potentially for something coming up soon. But Sith Marauder can hit in this team, in a Sith Empire team, with all the debuffs that are applied across the board. A Sith Marauder could hit for 120 easy. I've had him hit for over 200k with his bonus damage through his ferocity plus his regular damage with all the debuffs. It's just nuts. 100 to 200,000 throw when he throws those sabers. So pretty amazing actual damage, and can really turn the tide, especially when it's on defense. And you could put him in there, pull Darth Malak out, and put Darth Malak with Emperor Palpatine and Darth Vader and Tarkin, and have him be the tank or something, and that's just one crazy defensive team. Or you could use it on offense, and Darth Malak could kind of guarantee that you can win, if you have him. So just some thoughts. You might want to develop out Sith Marauder and or Sith Assassin. Now let's move to the next team. Now, not uncommon. A lot of people know that under the Separatists, specifically General Grievous, you got the B2 battle droid. You need to develop out your B1 battle droid. Now, I saw he was in your favorites, so that's good. You're going to continue to develop him. But one that's not in here that I highly recommend is actually Droideka. The Droideka is amazing, really a part of this team, and should be somebody that you should focus on. And while you do have a couple of rows of favorites, I would say Droideka is one of the more important of all of the characters that you're, thinking about. So definitely consider Droideka. Also, you had Magna Guard in your favorites. Not a problem. I would definitely develop Magna Guard, but just note, you can put Sunfac under General Grievous as the tank instead of Magna Guard, because the Dispel on basic and it's tank, it's very tanky as a tank. And even though it's not a droid, it can work in this with the Separatist synergy, and it would be one less character you have to develop out. So if you're struggling and you're like, Droideka's just one more, I'm not, I don't want to add him. Well, get the Droideka, pause Magna Guard, and just use Sunfac in the meantime. He can work in this team for sure. You could also put Geospy next to General Grievous, and it's amazing the kind of damage he can do. He can do 50, 60,000 damage if the team they're taking in does a lot of buffing. So like if they're trying to use, let's say, a Revan team to take this team out, there's going to be a ton of buffs, and those buffs are just going to be to their demise with Geospy. So you have a lot of like kind of +1 fillers. You don't have to do Magna Guard right now, but definitely Droideka should be in there with B1 in your favorites, and you should definitely consider working on him. Now, your Old Republic looks really great, and you've got Karth and his Zeta and Mission and her Zeta, and your basic Bastila Jolie, Jedi Knight Revan, so it all looks really, really amazing. You don't even need any more Zetas on any of the Old Republic, so you're doing well. Obviously, you're going to have to, finish out Karth Onasi, or at least I would personally, because he's only gear 10. You'd want to eventually get him to obviously gear 12. And now that we know gear 13's coming, there's that thing too, but I wouldn't worry too much about the gear 13 that's coming. Just get him to gear 12. That's kind of the standard for these teams that you're going to be using on offense and defense. But a really great defensive team. It just forces their hand to use kind of something meta to take it out. So this is definitely one that you'd want to use on defense, and it looks really well. And your smugglers are looking really good too. Now, I know you had Kira in your favorites, and she's definitely someone I would agree you did a good job of putting her in the favorites. She's someone I would develop out. You've got L3, Infus Nest, and with this, you can use like Kira L3, and then you can actually blend, aside from like maybe Kira L3 and Nest, you could put two others, but make them, rebels or something underneath. You don't have to go all smuggler faction when you do this, but continue to develop your Kira like you have. Infus Nest works really great under this L3 as well. They're definitely, Vandor and his Zeta is a necessary Zeta, so good job on that. And some people have put Han Solo and Chewbacca on this team, and basically made a super overpowered defensive team where it's really hard to beat. But I prefer to use like Chewbacca and Han Solo with CLS on offense, just because it can beat so much that you definitely want to have that kind of firepower on offense. Now let's look at another team. So when I looked at your favorites, it's funny, Padme was pretty low, and now she's like maxed out, so that's awesome. She was a real high priority for you, and she should be. She's a really, really, really great team. In fact, she's, the top 3 teams in the game. Actually, the top 4 teams in the game would be, number 4 would be General Grievous's droids. They're amazing. Right above that would be Revan teams, and then right above that would actually be Padme teams built correctly, and then above that would be Darth Revan with the Malak. So those are kind of like the top 4 teams, so definitely high focus on Padme teams. Now, General Kenobi, Barasafi, Jedi Knight Anakin, Ahsoka Tano, those are all great characters that you have at gear 11 or above, and you even have Rex up there, so that's good as well. And there's other kind of obscure characters you can look at down the road, like Fives. It's a pretty cool character in this lineup. But the 3+1, you definitely want Anakin, Ahsoka, and Kenobi, with Padme as the lead, and then of course a +1. The +1 can be anyone. Barasafi will work just fine in here. The only thing is when you put it on, if you put it on defense, you might want to keep Jedi Knight Anakin on offense with your Revan so you can beat Darth Revan. Some people do that. It's a really great option. And if you do that, you would want a 5th on this team to replace Anakin. So someone like C-3PO could fill that void if you wanted to put somebody as a 5th in there, and C-3PO C3PO is going to help kind of shut the other team down if this is on defense. You can use this on offense, but I think it's a great staple defensive team. And again, I would probably reserve Jedi Knight Anakin, even though he's amazing with Ahsoka and Kenobi. I would probably reserve him for like a Revan team for offense. Just a thought as far as that goes. But all in all, development wise, you know, get Ahsoka finished off, get her to gear 12, you're almost there. C3PO to gear 12, you're almost there. Barriss, I would just continue to develop slowly over time. Don't make her a massive priority, but C3PO and Ahsoka, I would. Yeah, I already have bounty hunters, and they're great for defense. And even though Dengar is only gear 9, I would still put him in there. I would put him in there over IG-88 just because he can do an AoE like IG-88. He's as squishy as IG-88, but he goes stealth, and he prevents the opposing team from going stealth. And he's really the last guy everybody kills anyway, just because he's stealth the whole time. He gets that tenacity up and everything when he takes a debuff. So leave him alone, but take IG-88 out. And then Bosk, eventually you'll want to throw a second Zeta on him. It is of my opinion that you'd want that. And then Boba Fett, you might consider throwing the Zeta on him for all of that protection regen on a death. It just makes the team a little more durable, especially if you're using them on defense. And then if you want to use them on offense, they work really, really great on offense to take out a number of teams. Now with bounty hunters, if you're going to go 3 versus 3, a lot of people are like, well, who would be my 3 on offense, 3 on defense? I like to put Bosk because he's like the lead and a tank with Dengar plus 1 damage dealer. So you could do Greedo or IG-88 or someone like that. On offense, I actually like Jango Fett, Boba Fett, and Cad Bane. The reason for that is because Cad Bane's got a stun for control. Boba Fett can shoot whoever he wants. And on 3 versus 3, that's really important that he targets whoever. You don't have Jango Fett, so that's somebody you might want to put into your priority list of favorites and start developing out. You had to, or you should have been farming him anyway just to get Bosk's ship, but you probably dolphined out a little bit on the ship, is why you probably have the ship but not the character Jango. Because Jango's just a really all-around great guy. He's like Boba Fett, but just better. They built his kit to be one step above Boba Fett. So I would put him into your favorites if you have time, and definitely he's going to help with 3 versus 3 because he'll be your leader. Him, Boba Fett, and like Cad Bane would be great. And then your other 3 versus 3 team could be like Bosk, Dengar, and Greedo, or Bosk, Dengar, and IG-88. Preferably probably Greedo, just because RNG allows him to shoot a bunch potentially on defense. And of course, First Order, you still might want to consider Kylo Ren's second Zeta. It is a pretty amazing Zeta, so you may want to consider it. And then finish off First Order Officer, but all in all, this looks pretty good. Now, if you have it, or if you're so inclined to develop another character in First Order, it would be First Order Stormtrooper. And the reason for that is First Order Stormtrooper, he gets advantage. Every time you like hit Kylo Ren, he gets, gives out advantage. So Stormtrooper gets advantage a lot. And when he has advantage, he can dispel on basics. Pretty awesome. And he's a great tank, and he just adds another element tank wise to the team. And I personally would prefer him over the First Order TIE pilot. But if you don't want to develop him, I get it. As a Dolphin, you kind of have to be hyper focused. And so First Order Officer would be the only one that you have to really develop out to Gear 12, in my opinion. You need the Gear 12 plus pieces on the First Order Officer for speed, because there's 12 more speed to be had at Gear 12 just from the gear alone. So definitely want to focus on that. Now that we focused on, some of the defensive potential teams that you'd be setting for 5 or 3 versus 3, we're going to look at the, offensive teams that I would suggest, things that you can kind of carve through. One of them is Jedi Knight Revan. He's like the second/third best team in the game. And he's still very, very much relevant. With Jedi Knight Revan, I like to run him with Jedi Knight Anakin, Jolie Bindo, Hermit Yoda, and Grandmaster Yoda. Grandmaster Yoda is there for the damage. Hermit Yoda is there for the turn meter gain and the regeneration of health and protection. This is super important because especially when you're going against a Malak, you got to make sure you have more than 100% health. So that protection regen is key to keep somebody alive when he's, sucking the life out of everyone. Also, Jedi Knight Anakin's there for that, healing immunity, buff immunity, and he's going to really help take out a Malak. This team, when played correctly, can take out Darth Revan, so that's good. But if you're putting Jedi Knight Anakin with General Kenobi and Ahsoka underneath Padme, you won't have that, so it's going to make it all the more difficult. But you can do the top 5 if you did set Anakin on defense with Padme. The top 5 work. It's just Bastila is less important than Anakin as far as going against like a Darth Revan team. You also have to make sure you have your Jedi Knight Revan fast. You need him really about 300 speed with his additional speed he gives. That puts him around 330, which would be faster than any potential dark side, Bastila out there. And so you really need to make sure that you're still prioritizing a speed set for Jedi Knight Revan to make sure that he's, after his speed bonuses, faster than the Darth Revan and the dark side Bastila that you'd be going against. You could put both Revans on defense, but that really, really, really makes it difficult for you to have kind of an A squad to go against other A squads. Now, your Nightsisters look phenomenal, and there's no surprise here. You know your Nightsisters. They're great for offense or defense. I actually like using them to chew through teams on offense. I take my Nightsisters. I always kill the droids with them, so the Nightsisters work great against droids with all the revives with Mother Talzin lead and with Old Daka on the team. If you want to create it a little more durability, you could always Zeta Old Daka. It really brings about an insane amount of durability for her. And then Nightsister Spirit. Finish developing Nightsister Spirit, especially when you're on 3 versus 3. Nightsister Spirit really comes into play, both on offense or defense. So what I like to do is I like to, stick Asajj as the lead and then put like Old Daka and Zombie, because Zombie's going to regenerate Asajj a couple of times, even if you kill Asajj twice. If you put Old Daka Zeta on, then they'll really have to go after Asajj, because Old Daka is going to be way harder to kill. So they're going to go after Asajj, kill her twice because of Zombie, and then the third time they kill Asajj, Old Daka will revive. And so you're like, it's very difficult. The other thing you could do is you could use Asajj Ventress lead, Zombie, and Acolyte, because Acolyte goes stealth, and then you've got Zombie, Ventress, and Acolyte going crazy, and they can't get to Acolyte. And if they didn't save certain characters that do like mass AoE, they have to take in a team where basically everyone does AoE to kill the Acolyte under stealth. Otherwise, it becomes a problem on defense to kill out that Acolyte. So teams that like burn and stuff like that can kind of get to her because the AoE burn, like R2 or like, Jango Fett, things like that work well, but the AoEs are necessary, so that's a fun team as well. On offense, I like to use like Mother Talzin so I can revive someone if they die on a mass attack. I like to use Spirit for control because she can stun and dispel, and you can take out who you need to take out. And then also Old Daka works really well in that team, because if someone dies, you don't have the zombie in that team to revive, so Old Daka with Mother Talzin is a great combo to make sure you're keeping people brought back to life strategically. Bottom line, though, if there was a Zeta to be had, it would be on Old Daka, and Nightsister Spirit. Finish her out to gear 12 for sure. Now, I've talked about this team to a lot of other people, and a lot of people know about this team, but Emperor Palpatine lead with Darth Vader, because he's super fast underneath Emperor Palpatine, and he can prime the turn meter of the entire team. But Grand Moff Tarkin, Imperial Probe Droid, Shore Trooper, you already have Shore Trooper and Grand Moff Tarkin. This is a really great team to kill Nightsisters with. You can also actually use it to kill, boss bounty hunter teams, First Order teams, Kira teams. This is kind of a Swiss Army knife of teams, if you will. But your Imperial Probe Droid obviously needs a lot of work. He's gear 7, so 7-star gear 7, level 80. You're gonna want to level him up. He doesn't need a Zeta or anything. Just take him to gear 11 minimum. He's got that dispel, target lock capability, but he can also go boom if things start to go south and you just need to kill like the leader, so that way when you come back in, cleanup is way easier. Or if you have that very difficult character such as Nest and you're having a hard time, you could take Imperial Probe Droid in and just boom, blow Nest up, and then you don't have to worry about cleaning her up after the other 4 are dead. So Imperial Probe Droid, super underutilized in the game in my opinion. I would highly recommend you develop him out for sure. Your Resistance look great, and really Rey Jedi training with BB-8, R2-D2, C-3PO. These are really a great team. 4 droids plus Rey. The 4th droid, could be any droid you want, but definitely definitely I would use this on offense. It's again another like Swiss Army knife. It can kill like 5 or 6 of the main defensive style teams people will use, and it's just really great because on defense they can kind of pick it apart and figure out how they want to kill it, but on offense you get to determine which team you take this against, so you can decide how best to use her and make sure that you pick a team that you can win against. But with 4 droids, Jedi Training Ray is amazing. The one I like the best to add to this team would be T3. And if you look, you actually have a Gear 11 T3, so that would work great. The reason is he can help regenerate the other droids, and plus he's got a dispel. He can dispel the whole team. Plus he can do debuffs on the whole team, so he really kind of cripples the offensive capability of the opposing team. You could also potentially use Chopper in this team as well if you have C-3PO with your Galactic Republic. That does happen, and I did suggest that potentially for you. And so if you needed to, Chopper's great. Chopper's very durable and he can dispel, and so he's just one more droid to just make the droids pop. Now I know when you have T3, Chopper, R2, and BB-8, you're like, where's the damage coming from? But you'd be surprised. T3 is amazing, and if you decide you want to throw an alternate Zeta on someone that's kind of obscure, T3's armor penetration Zeta is insane. It's really, really great for this particular team, and it will really step up your offensive capability of this entire team. And then, of course, we did briefly mention Rebels earlier, but I like to use them on offense because they kill a lot. I like to use Commander Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Chewbacca, and then for some durability, Chirrut Imwe and Baze work great. Chirrut just brings all those, health over times, and Baze taunts when Chirrut gets injured, and Chirrut has some burst damage, and more than likely, he's probably going to be guarded by Chewbacca. Han Solo and him would probably be guarded by Chewbacca, and that's going to provide a little more durability, and when he attacks, Chewbacca will attack. So pretty awesome. Of the team, I know obviously Baze is someone you need to work on, which you have in your favorites already, as well as Captain Han Solo's a really great just all-around character, and you have him in your favorites as well. But Baze, I agree with that decision. That's a phenomenal decision for you to finish out your Baze Malbus. So really, you've got majority of the teams pretty much done or close to being done. There was a few that you needed to work on, like the B1, Kira, Baze, IG-100. You got a lot of them that I agreed with in your favorites. The Imperial Probe droid was kind of off the charts. You didn't really have that on your radar. I didn't see it in your favorites, as well as Droideka. You didn't see Droideka on your favorites as well. And those 2 droids definitely are going to make those teams get to the next level. I did suggest some Zetas throughout, so hopefully you wrote those Zetas that you haven't done down, so you have kind of a Zeta priority list. I really hope, Smottern, that this helps you really take your 5 versus 5 and your 3 versus 3 to the next level. If there's any team where you're unsure how would you break out the team into 3 versus 3 offense or 3 versus 3 defense, just send me another message and I'll tell you exactly how I personally would break that specific team down. And as always, I hope everybody out there got something out of this roster review. And as always, keep your gaming on. Warrior out.